Hello everyone, my name is Jinjos, and welcome to my Pokemon anime review series. Last episode, the trio boarded the St. Anne and joined in on the Pokemon convention being held with shopping, eating, and casual Pokemon battles. Ash ends up trading his Butterfree for Eradicate, which he quickly regrets. After Team Rocket ambushes the ship, but are quickly defeated, Ash does trade back, just in time for the sink to ship. We are left with the cliffhanger of the trio and Team Rocket at the bottom of the ocean in a sinking ship. Today we're going to be talking about Season 1, Episode 16, Pokemon Shipwreck, Episode 2 of 3 in our little mini-arc of the St. Anne. Before jumping into the episode, our Who's That Pokemon of this episode is Magikarp, a fish-like Pokemon that can be found in many bodies of water, including oceans, lakes, rivers, and ponds. It can often be found downstream of the water's flow, as its swimming abilities is rather weak. It is often seen using its signature move Splash to leap out of the water, making it an easy target for predators such as Pidgeotto and Pidgeot. Its Pokemon Omega Ruby Pokedex entry reads, Magikarp is a pathetic excuse for a Pokemon that is only capable of flopping and splashing. This behavior prompted scientists to undertake research into it. I'd like to add that the Pokedex entries for Magikarp are not only brutal, calling it useless, pathetic, worthless, etc., they are also pretty interesting, and I recommend that you go through and read all of them. A couple fun facts about Magikarp. It is tied with Gyarados and Regigigas for being the lowest level Pokemon encountered in the wild at level 1, and also tied with Gyarados for being the highest level encounter at level 100. It also has the highest increase in base stats when it evolves, going from 200 to 540 when it evolves into Gyarados. Moving into the episode, we open up to the narrator giving us a quick overview of the last episode, even slipping in a Titanic reference in there, and ends on, could this be the end? Seems a bit strange to say that at the beginning of an episode, though. We switch over to Officer Jenny, who speaks out to the ocean, stating that after a head count, they discover that 5 individuals are missing and have perished in the sinking of the St. Anne. She then lists off the trio and Team Rocket's names before throwing a bouquet of flowers into the ocean. Now, first off, the stamp on the side of the ship reads PM16, meaning Pocket Monsters 16, a reference to the current episode. Second, how do they have Jesse and James's name? They were stowaways on the boat, so that doesn't make much sense. But it's a cartoon, so let's not get all wrapped up in that. I will say, though, I feel like they missed a chance to punk all the kids of the world. Imagine Officer Jenny throwing in those flowers and then just the credits rolling. Moving down into the ship, we find Ash hanging upside down from his jacket, falling on Pikachu, and I'm shocked that he didn't get shocked. Ash looks out the window to realize how dire their situation is, and he actually sees a couple of fish swim by, another rare instance where we see animals that are in the real world, something that'll be done away with in a future episode. We switch over to a beach scene where Jesse and James are relaxing in their swimwear, getting a nice tan. James slowly realizes that it's getting a bit too hot, and they wake up to see where they have been knocked out, and it's right underneath a gas grill, which is thoroughly torching them, ruining their hair. But a little water will take care of that and get their hair back to normal. Meowth very matter-of-factually informs them of their situation, to which Jessie has the perfect answer. She calls out Ekans to use acid on the floor in order to escape. And I gotta say, if Ekans' acid can eat through the floor of a cruise liner, then imagine what it can do to a Pokemon. In true fashion, a bunch of water floods through the hole Ekans made, and Team Rocket is swept away. Back to the trio, they're getting a game plan together. Ash suggests they dive down to get to the deck, which is below them, but Brock paints a pretty terrible picture of Ash drowning when they find a locked door in his imagination. Misty sends out Goldeen to search for a way out by going down to the deck, but all Goldeen finds is Team Rocket's drowning bodies. Goldeen brings them back, and they are thoroughly waterlogged, but the sight of the twerp and his friends instantly re-energizes them, and a Pokemon battle begins. Though this is obviously not the best time for this, and a little overkill for Ash as he sends out 3 Pokemon. This leads to the ship teeter-tottering on the precarious position, and it's up to Misty to knock some sense into everyone to recall their Pokemon so they can figure out how to get off the ship. A tension-filled truce is made, though Pikachu isn't on board, shocking Meowth as they shake hands. We then learn that Misty is an all-knowing being who is really into ship models, as she put one together the St. Anne itself. Convenient, I must say. They go with her original plan of climbing upwards, which will lead them to the hull of the boat. They cut a hole and then swim to the surface. To do so, Brox calls out his weightless Onix, of course, and makes a staircase with him. And I honestly love every time they use Pokemon to solve their problems like this. This early season really does have a great mix of Pokemon battles and using them in the real world to solve their problems. It just makes them feel a little more real. They start the climb with Misty calling the shots. Even Jessie says yes ma'am when she gives an order. As they wander through the ship in the darkness, Brock makes this wonderful observation.
The lights are out. I can't see anything.
Don't know what we do without you, Brock. They end up in the engine room, which is just simply a pit of fire, and Jessie and James just cannot see them surviving. They say their last goodbye. Getting across the engine room seems impossible, but after an electric jumpstart from Pikachu, Ash sends out a grass Pokemon in order to cross it over a river of fire. Cartoons, man. James has a quick meltdown, telling them to go on without him, and we get a nice moment where Jesse literally slaps some sense into him, but then softens, telling him they are going to get out of this together. It's nice to see this sort of camaraderie between Jesse and James. They spend so much time together, they both have very similar goals, they both are kind of quirky, and they just make a really great duo. They make it across and have Charmander come out to start melting the hull so they can swim out. Though poor Charmander, a ton of water is about to flow into this place, and he ends up having to run holding his tail up. While the trio head out with their water Pokemon, they straight up leave Team Rocket behind, didn't check with them, and probably know they don't have any water Pokemon. Little do they know that James is going to be their savior, bringing out his gold-plated Pokeball and sends out Magikarp, which begins flopping around and can't even swim. Maybe these Pokedex entries are right. What a sad little Pokemon. They end up being washed away. We move to the trio up top, who have found a convenient makeshift raft, complete with barrels underneath to keep it afloat. They give a brief moment to think about Team Rocket, but they shift their focus to finding land. Brock mentions the story of Noah, who sent out a bird to find land, which is what Ash ends up doing. Once again, though, a Pokemon is sent out, but only to return with the lifeless bodies of Team Rocket. And again, the trio gives them a brief thought, and they go to shove them off the raft to bury them at sea. God, these kids have no heart and are pretty calm about having 3 possibly dead bodies on board. They wake up, though, and they begin to drift at sea. Hunger starts to set in with no end in sight. All their eyes turn towards Magikarp, who is simply flopping in the middle of the raft. You think it would be back in its Pokeball or released into the water. Meowth goes in for a bite, breaking his teeth on Magikarp's hard-shelled scales. James kicks him into the ocean, and who knew a little abuse could lead to a Magikarp evolving into a terrifying Gyarados. And Ash, not letting a giant terrifying Pokemon stop him, whips out his Pokedex to log it into his Pokedex. You gotta give him props for his dedication. Misty stands strong, summons her water Pokemon, and runs away, of course. They paddle as the Gyarados pursues them, and of course, because of the script, they stop paddling once Gyarados stops moving. Misty recalls the stories of Dragon Rage, and 4 more Gyarados pop up and they begin their ultimate attack. A giant water spout spins towards them, and they hold on to each other for as long as possible. Once the strain is too much, they let go, and who knows where they're going to land. Not the most insightful or inspiring episode, but it definitely is a fun little adventure, and you will have to join me next week where we'll be wrapping up the St. Anne trilogy with Season 1, Episode 17, The Island of the Giant Pokemon. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode. I'll see you next week, and I hope you have a wonderful day.